So once you draw your object, you have to export it out in STL. You right click on this part in this particular software. Sometimes you go to File up on here top and say Export. On this one, you have to find the file and right click on the part you're talking about. You might have multiple parts here. Right click and say Export. And then you name the file, Heart Phone Case. And then make sure it's in STL format, so the bottom one on this one. So STL format is the one we're going to use. It's a generic format, just pretty much says what the object looks like and nothing else. You'll never be able to edit this really, because you're going to lose all these little things right here. But that's fine, it's still here in this software. We're just talking about this particular export. Make sure units is in millimeters. Pretty much all 3D printers I've dealt with are in millimeters. Resolution, make sure you choose a fine one. If you use coarse, it's going to look really ugly and a lot of large polygons and triangles in it, and it's not going to look that pretty. And then go ahead and put OK, and we're going to download this, and then we're going to save it right here. And then once it's saved and you have that on your computer, you need to use a slicing software. Now, a slicing software, the one I'll be using today, is this one here called Cura. Cura is an open source software, and it works really good for the Ender 3. For every printer uses its own. Some printers you have a proprietary one. In other words, the company makes its own slicing software. This one can be used for all kinds of 3D printers. It's open source, and you have to like set it up though. So you have to click Add Printer and put all the exact settings of your printer and stuff. But once you're done, you're done. And here's an object right here, but this is not the one I did because I just did that heart. So I'll go ahead and delete that. I just pushed delete on my keyboard. And let's go to the folder here and let's bring in that new one. Here it is, heart phone case. There it is. And I want to print this. So if I right click on this, I can look at this right here. And it's got everything I need. If I want to try to make two, I can select it, and I think I can say, or I think I right click on it and say duplicate the object right here. Multiply the selected object. I only want one. You can move it around to like maybe have multiple objects and make sure it fits on the object. If you're outside the print area, it'll turn weird color like that, meaning you will not be able to print it. So like make sure it looks normal. You can rotate it. So this one right here, you can move it. Here you can scale it, so you can make it bigger or smaller. This one right here, you can rotate it, so you grab these little lines and rotate them. This one you can mirror it, and then there's per model settings and stuff like that, so you don't have to worry about those. Next, let's look at the settings on these 3D printers right here. So every 3D printer, one way or another, has these settings. They might be super simple, or they can get super complex. The main ones you want to look at, especially like on any 3D printers, like three main things you really want to look at. One, so if I just choose these, it'll automatically do a certain setting, okay? So, like let's say I go to standard quality, right? All right. So what it does is it's going to change my layer height. A 3D printer prints by printing a little thin layer of plastic, and then another layer of plastic, and another layer of plastic. So like on this particular phone right here case, it'll print all the bottom thin layer. And how thin is that layer? It's going to be 0.2 millimeters on this print. If you want it more detail, you would go to smaller, like 0.1. Okay, but printers they can only go so small. So like you have to kind of check with your printer and see how thin can I make it. So the thinner you go, the more detailed the object will be, and the better it may look. But it's going to take way longer because every layer is so thin, it takes longer to build. There's going to be more layers. Point 2 seems to be a really good middle of the ground. It's pretty fast and it looks really good. Next thing, don't worry about shelling and infill. Those are like, they're not advanced, but that just says the density. So if I build this big cube or big box and it's solid, it's not going to fill it with solid pure plastic. No way. What a waste that would be. It would use so much plastic. So what it'll do is it'll fill it with like little gaps of like honeycomb or triangles and stuff to make it stronger, but mostly air. And what percentage do you want it to be of plastic? You put that here. So right now it's at 20% plastic infill, which is really strong and totally fine. The next thing you can do is you can adjust whether it needs supports or not. This particular one does not need supports. I've shared that with you guys before, that if it's printing something that's really tall and there's something hanging out and there's nothing underneath it to hold it, you would need to print supports for that object. For example, if it was a person and their hand was sticking out sideways and there was nothing underneath it to support it, you would need to say generate supports right here. Other than that, you could adjust speeds, how fast it prints. The faster it prints, the faster the head moves around and prints that layer. But the quality starts to go down. I noticed that 40, 50 is really good, 60 is okay. Start going over that, it prints so fast that it's real sloppy and it doesn't come out good. Um, Enable retraction. Retraction is really important, and it's a value that a lot of 3D printer people that are hobbyists they look at. That means that when it prints a little bit and needs to move the head to print somewhere else, that it retracts and sucks up a little bit of plastic so it doesn't string. So you won't see little stringing plastic moving around everywhere. Here's the print temperature. That's super important. Now, technically, if I go up here and I choose what am I using to print, I'm printing PLA plastic. It will automatically generate the exact temperature of the print temperature and that. But lots of people play with that temperature. You might buy a batch of plastic from Amazon and go, hey, I noticed that when I print at 190, my prints come out way better. And then someone else might say, no, when I do 210, it's much better. Or I notice when I do 190, the prints are really weak and they snap really easy when I try to bend them. But 210, the layers bond together really strong, and it's a lot stronger part. So you can totally play with this. Oops. You can totally play with that temperature thing, wherever that was. I made it go away. Material, I think it was under. Yeah. And then the build plate temperature. That's the plate that it's printing on. By warming that bottom layer, it does help from warping, So, although PLA, they say it's not necessary, but I always have it on and it works great. When you're done, you would slice it like that, and then you just say print. Then you usually save it on a file right here, and then you put that file in the printer and you kind of just push go. There's a few things we need to do to the printer to kind of prepare it, but in the end that's all there is. I have Octoprint on mine, so I can print it from here. I just click this and it sends it through the wireless and sends it right to my printer. So what I'll do is I'll try to print this and see what it looks like in real life, so you guys can see that. It's not going to be ready by the end of this class, but it'll definitely be ready by tomorrow, and I'll share it with you folks, okay?